I'm Clint, this is Yin Yoga, and today's a wall class. And you're going to need a strap, you're going to need 2 blocks, and you might want to use a towel from time to time. But to start today, I'd like you to sit with your back against the wall. Now, at your option, you can use a block, putting right up against the baseboard or maybe an inch or so out. Get your sit bones on that block. And then get your sacrum right flat on the wall. So if you're sitting on the mat, maybe your sacrum is tilting back or tilting forward a little bit. And so maybe the block will help. But from here, lift the crown of your head up towards the ceiling, and then tuck your chin in a little bit so that right in the middle of the back of your head is on the wall. Allow your eyes to close. Your hands can be anywhere. They can be on your knees. Your triceps can be against the wall behind you with your wrists balanced on your thighs. Really doesn't matter. But from here, close your eyes and turn inside. Take a deep cleansing breath in through your nose and let it all out through your nose. And another deep cleansing breath in through your nose, out through your nose. And let your breath come to its own natural rhythm. And all your breath during today's class and every yoga class should really be only through your nose. Your nose cleanses the air, it moistens it, it either warms the air or cools the air, prepares it perfectly for your lungs. When you inhale through your nose, there's a pressure buildup because of all of the little nooks and crannies that your nasal cavities have. And that increases the pressure by almost 50% so that you get more air in your lungs. And that allows you to absorb 10 to 20% more oxygen, making your breath more efficient. A couple of weeks ago, I had you placing a hand on your belly and another on your heart. And you can do that again if you wish, so that you can feel your breath. If you're used to breathing only in the tops of your lungs, maybe think about breathing down into your belly, even when you don't need to. That will increase your lung capacity so that when you need it, it will be there. Breathing in and out through your nose creates more nitric oxide. And what that does, that improves your body's ability to resist viruses and microorganisms. And it also has a side benefit of increasing the blood vessels, making them bigger, allowing more oxygen to flow, more blood to flow through your arteries and your veins. In fact, when they discovered the benefits of nitric oxide in the 80s, that started a lot of research into how that could help hearts and reduce pulmonary disease and hardening of the arteries. And of course, that led directly to the invention of Viagra. Begin to deepen your breath. And open your eyes. The first pose that I'd like you to do is dragon. And dragon on with your right hip up against the wall. So however your mat or your wall is set up, get your right hip maybe fist width away from the wall. That way it will give your hips a little bit of adjustability. And if you start with your knees close to the edge of your mat, then you can just step forward with your right leg, coming forward. And now from here, scoot your left knee back an inch or so or more, whatever happens to work for you. And you should feel this big stretch coming into your hip flexor, right here at the top of your left thigh. Bring your palms to the mat. This pose here with your right knee up against that wall prevents that knee from falling out. Stretch your collarbones forward. And if this bothers your knee, you can always bring a block underneath your shin and just raise the floor up so that your knee is completely off of the mat. It may intensify the feeling in your right hip, which is the other target of this pose. So you're focusing on your hip flexors here and on your right hip. If your leg is all the way down on the floor, you're getting a benefit to your left ankle and also your left toes. Find a place here that's good for you. If you'd rather have this pose come into your right ankle, if you're a big walker, you can always move that right foot back so that you're overstepping. You'll still feel this in your hip, but it's really up to you to find the best place in your hip. Now, your hip can move your fist width to the right, so maybe try moving it to the right, and then maybe come back to the left. And maybe one of those positions is the best for your body right now. With the focus of this pose being your hip flexors and that right hip socket, you have a big area that you can use as a target. And so you can move your hips a little bit one way or the other. You can move forward or backward. And if this is good for you right here, you can stay. If you'd like to modify this, you come down onto your elbows and onto some blocks, or that towel I suggested. You can certainly try that. I suggest maybe coming away from the wall a little bit. And this creates a bit of a dragonfly. Dragon with that right knee up and out. it's not really out, it's in line with your legs. But compared to your hip now, your hip is tilted. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, push the floor away. Coming back up. Maybe bend that left knee and free up that left foot. Draw your right hip back. And then come over onto your mat, away from the wall, and do a couple of cat-cows here. Get a lot of movement in your hips. This counter works on your hip flexors, as well as on your shoulders. And you may have had more stress on your shoulders in that dragon pose. And the next time you come to center, pause. From here, just walk your hands back over to the wall, but this time bringing your left hip onto the wall, or about a fist width apart, away from the wall. Come to that edge, so you have more room for your mat behind you. Step that right leg forward, and bring your hands down onto the mat, or onto the floor on the inside of that left foot. From here, pop that right knee back. Trying to drop your hip down towards the floor. Stretch your spine along here. Feel that stretch in your left hip and in your right hip flexors. For the past month, I've been feeling really good about dragon poses, and I had almost decided they were no longer my least favorite pose. With the restriction of the wall on my left knee, it's resumed its stature as being the worst pose I ever do. So if you are enjoying this, good for you. And if this pose right now is good for you, you can stay here, or you can walk your hands off to the right and come down onto your elbows or onto a block. And feel that extra stretch in your left groin. You have all the options with that right knee. If it bothers you, you can bring a towel or a block underneath it. Try to get both elbows at about the same elevation. You can move your hips a little bit left or a little bit right. And just test how you feel this. And your hip flexor on the right and your hip on the left. The target is that whole area. So any part of that is good. And of course, the area that you feel most intensely is probably where you need it the most. But don't overdo it. You have about 1 more minute here. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, push the floor away. Rising up. Walk your hands back. Bring that left knee back to meet the right. And come back onto your mat and do a couple of cat cows again. And maybe be happy that the next pose uses the wall in a different manner. The next time you come to center pause, make sure you have 2 blocks. And then I always pretend that I was a bad child and I have to go put my face into the wall. So walk your knees right up to the wall so that your belly or your pelvis is engaged. Make sure that your blocks, this pose is camel pose. So make sure that your blocks are close to your feet if you need them. And mosey on up, get really cozy. And then maybe, if you wish, we're doing half camel here, although if you are able to do a full camel, go for it. So your arms are overhead, and then bring that right arm back around behind, and reach back for the top of the block or the top of your heel. And try to keep your pubic bone on the wall. Just 3 more breaths. This is pretty powerful. And then on an exhale, just come back down onto your knees in hero. Maybe just move your hips a little bit from left to right. Do a couple of kneeling cat-cows. Having the wall in front of you, here's a little bit of an obstruction for cat-cow. Next time you come to center pause, come back up. Re-engage with the wall. If you want to move your knees a little bit closer, go ahead. Both arms up overhead. And then on an exhale, bring that left arm back and around. And then reach down for that block or the top of your left heel. And if you're on your left heel, your toes can be curled under or not. And try to get your pubic bone on the wall. Try to keep your shoulders square. Three more breaths. And then release. This time, walk your knees back, away from the wall, coming down into child's pose, facing the wall. Your knees can be narrow or wide, whatever works best for you. Get far enough away from the wall that your arms are not hitting it. Bring your hips down close to your heels, and then walk your hands forward. And feel this wonderful stretch on your spine. Try to stretch that spine all the way from the crown of your head, all the way down to your tailbone. Maybe you want to move your hips just a micro bit to the left or to the right. That gives some relief to your lumbar spine, which was taking up most of that back bend. In your spine, your cervical spine is very flexible. Your thoracic spine, 12 vertebrae long, is not very flexible at all, but mostly it's your lumbar spine. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, come back up into table. And this time, come into a seated position with your right hip against the wall. And walk your sit bones all the way to the edge of your mat, so that when you lean back and bring your back over onto your mat, your hips are staying very close to the wall. So from here, as you inhale and then exhale, take your shoulder out towards the top of your mat as you swing your legs up the wall. Your hips should be roughly centered on your mat. That's not that important. But then use your shoulders and your elbows to scooch your sit bones onto the wall. Stretch. Good for you, Priscilla. Stretch your feet up towards the ceiling. Push your heels away. And then bend your knees and bring the soles of your feet together. And that can be at any elevation that feels good for you. It can be way down, close to your sit bones, or it can be really high up. This is an opener for your groins and your hips, because you're getting a nice rotation of your femurs in your hip sockets. And maybe you can push gently on your thighs and get your knees to move towards the wall. But find a place that is not really challenging for you so that your arms don't get tired. But a place where you can maintain some fairly constant pressure. And then analyze your body. Find which groin muscles are being engaged here. And breathe into them. Maybe your abs are engaged. Maybe your pelvic floor muscles are engaged, your mula bandhas, or your uddiyana bandhas. Make micro adjustments as is necessary. I forgot to ask you to have your strap right next to you. So if you need to get up and run across the room and grab it, I would suggest doing that right now. And then on your next inhale, just begin to straighten your legs up towards the ceiling. Stretch your heels away. Stretching your hamstrings. And feel the blood leaving your ankles. And then bend your knees just enough so that your soles engage with the wall. Put your hands down next to your hips. And on an inhale, push your feet into the wall, lifting your hips up. Make sure that your head is looking directly up at the ceiling, and then come back down. You can do another bridge if you wish. Then come back down. And then stretch your left foot up towards the ceiling. Grab your strap. Place the center of your strap across the ball of your right foot. Make a bind with each hand. And this pose is very similar to the pose where you're just laying on your back and you drag that foot out to the side, but with the wall here, it becomes significantly different. So from here, draw your arms out to the sides, bringing more weight onto that foot, drawing your right femur into your hip socket. The more you pull, maybe the more you shake, but keep that left leg straight. And then gently, carefully, switch your bind to just your right hand. And then turn that foot out about 15 degrees. Bring your left hand onto the top of your left hip. The job of your left hand is to make sure that your sacrum stays flat on the mat. Maybe rock a little bit from side to side to make sure that it is flat. If it comes up, then bring your leg back up a little bit. And then from here, slowly begin lowering that right foot out and down. You can feel the stretch on your groins, on your quads, on your hamstrings. Check your sacrum. If it's up, just bring that leg back up. Maybe you want to let your leg go closer towards the wall, because that will reduce the rotation in your hip. And at some point, your sacrum will come up. And that is the maximum that you can rotate that leg out. What happens is your femur bones impact on your pelvic bone. So there is no more space. It doesn't hurt. I could be there and I could push down and your left hip would pop up, but it wouldn't hurt. That's the maximum your body can give you. So don't get frustrated with that. Don't think that getting down to the mat is where you have to go.
In yoga, you learn the limitations on your body are good, and you can live with those. If you'd like a little bit more groin stretch, maybe move your left leg out a little bit. Notice that your sacrum stays flat on the floor. Maybe play with your strap and pull your foot away from the wall and see what that does with your pelvis. When you're fully extended, your pelvis responds to your leg movement. It has to. Maybe let your foot come, your right foot, your heel come all the way to the wall. Maybe it can come down a little bit further, maybe not. But test it, see. And then begin to deepen your breath. Slowly bring that leg back up towards the ceiling. Once you get that leg coming straight up, make sure that your left leg comes back straight up also. Readjust to make sure your sit bones are still on the wall. And then carefully change your bind into your left hand. And pay attention to your sacrum again. And then slowly draw that right foot off to the left. Just a bit. Feel your right IT band and all the muscles on the outside of your right leg being stretched. And then return your foot up to the ceiling. Bend that right knee. Release your bind. Bring your soles back onto the wall. Bring your hands next to your hips. And do a couple more bridges. And if these bridges are too challenging for you, just take your feet up higher and don't come up as much. This is just bringing some movement into your hip sockets, into your knees and your feet. And the next time you come back down, from here, draw your knees into your chest. Give yourself a squeeze, and maybe you can rock from left to right. It's pretty tight there against the wall. And then from here, you may have to adjust how far from the wall you are, but bring your arms out into T. And then lower your knees off to the left, keeping your feet, walking your feet down the wall into spinal twists. You want that wall here to help support your legs. And from here, you can really feel this in your right hip. This twist may be accentuated. You may need to have a diaphragmatic breath to push your organs down below your rib cage. You may need to walk your knees farther out to make this comfortable. But feel the stretch from your left shoulder to your right hip. You can probably feel this across your back in the same way. Your right shoulder is being opened up. Use a block between your legs if there's a space, or your hand to help weigh down that right knee. Soften your glutes here. Soften your abdomen. If you're not sure that you're softening your lower legs, maybe just reach over, running your hands over the muscles. And find peace in this pose. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, slowly turn back towards the wall, walking your feet up. When your sacrum comes to rest, bend your knees one more time, putting your soles on the mat, or on the wall rather, yeah. And then push your feet into the wall into another couple bridges. These bridges can both be yan poses, helping build strength, as well as counter poses, relieving tension. And from here, reach your both legs up high, pushing your heels away, feeling the stretch in your hamstrings. And then bend that left knee, grab your strap, and put the middle of your strap.
Might need one to your chest to get closer.
Okay. If you're not close enough to the wall, make an adjustment. There's nothing wrong with that. And then when your foot is in the middle of your strap, draw your arms outward, strengthening your shoulders, strengthening your hips, and drawing that left femur into your hip socket. Then carefully change your mind to your left hand. Turn that left foot out about 15 degrees. And again, make sure that your sacrum is flat on the mat. And then lower that left leg towards the floor on the left and pay close attention to your sacrum. And the moment it wants to pop up, pause there. That might just be a tight muscle initially. But at some point, you're going to reach a compression area, and that's bone on bone. And this side may be different from the other. And you may come too far and not realize it. But when you do, just back up. Right now, my leg is about 20 inches off of the floor. When I do this not on the wall, I'm down to within 12 inches. Because without the wall there, it's really difficult to tell if your hips have risen or if your pelvis is tilted towards the left. Once you found that limit, accept it. But if you want a little bit more sensation, you can always move that right leg out towards the right. Might only be 3 inches, might be 12 inches. You may be able to do the splits. But the left leg is the target here. And whatever you do with the right leg is not that important. If you can get 2 stretches in one pose, now that's something to grab onto. Try playing again on this side. Maybe move that foot farther away from the wall. See what that does. Maybe let it come in a little bit. Maybe push that heel farther out. Do some experimentation. Maybe there's a better place, but only you know. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, slowly bring that left leg up towards the ceiling. And pause there. If your right leg is off to the side, bring that up. And then very carefully, switch your bind into your right hand. Bring your left thumb to the left hip crease. And then draw that left foot over to the right until you get a nice stretch on the outside of that left leg. And again, experiment. Maybe draw that foot towards the wall behind your head and get a lot more of that into your hamstring, the back of your leg. Or maybe let it go towards the front towards the wall and see where that is felt. Maybe you feel that more in your quad. And then on an exhale, bring that leg back to center. Bend the knee. Draw that knee into your chest. Give yourself a squeeze. Bring your right leg back down. Give yourself a squeeze here. And rock from left to right. And the next time you come to center, pause. From here, bring your arms out into T. Coming into spinal twist on the right side. Just bring your knees off to the right. Maybe you have to walk your feet in an arc to come down towards the floor. But make sure both soles are on the wall or on the baseboard. Maybe you want to block between your knees again. Maybe this side is different. Feel how tight this twist is. If your breath is confined by your body position, embrace that. And then use your breath into that area that's restricted. Use your breath to make more space. You're massaging those muscles that are being engaged. And they will soften. One of the things about a wall class that is interesting is that gravity is in a different position. So your body experiences it differently. The wall adds resistance to your poses, which changes which areas of your muscles you feel the pose. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, bring your knees back to center. If your hips have walked away from the wall, that's okay. Give your knees a squeeze and rock from left to right. You can cross your ankles to make some more space between you and the wall. And then release your legs up towards the ceiling another time. Bend your knees, bring the soles of your feet onto the wall. Do a couple more bridges. We have two more poses. The next pose is either a dragonfly or a frog. And as you know from Tuesday's class, either one, they're both the same pose. Now you can bring your legs out wide if you wish. Your legs can be straight. You can bend your knees, bring your footprints onto the wall. You can walk your feet way down. And right here, I'm a little bit too tight, I think. So I'm going to move my hips a little bit farther away from the wall. So I can get into a really tight frog, almost like a yoga squat. But find what is best for you. The target of this pose is your groin. Your groin and your hamstrings and your hips. If your legs are long, that's great. Maybe use your hands to just hang on your knees. Maybe rotate your feet. If your feet go outward, you're getting a different rotation in your hips. If your feet are rotated inward, you're getting an inward rotation on your hips, for your femur and your hips. That makes it almost a saddle pose. There are lots of different ways to experience this. Select the one for you today that feels the best way for you. This is your practice. You know what is going on inside your body. You want to challenge your body in those tight areas. Stimulate those muscles just enough and then relax them so that your muscles soften and your fascia takes up the tension of the pose. And when that tension goes into your fascia, as you know, over time, your fascia is elongated, creating more space for your muscles, creating more flexibility for you, and more mobility for your whole body. Find a point here where you can just let your muscles hang. Soften your hips. Soften your glutes. Soften your quads, your abdomen. Your Mula Bandha, your Uddiyana Bandha. Embrace gravity. Embrace the stiffness of the wall. Begin to deepen your breath. On your next inhale, slowly bring your legs back up the wall. And this time, bring your feet off the wall, maybe 2 inches, maybe 6 inches, with straightish legs. And then just rock your legs back and forth like an upside down pendulum. And if you come over too far and you take your legs all the way down to the floor, that's fine. Oh, it's the cramp in my quad. And the next time you come to center, pause there. And the only pose left is Shavasana. And your Shavasana can be taken in any pose you want. You can stay here with your legs up the wall in caterpillar. You can spread your legs into a V, a narrow V or a wide V, like another dragonfly or another butterfly. If you'd rather just come into corpse pose, normal Shavasana on your mat, that's perfectly acceptable too. Do what is best for you. You've already had the benefit of the inversion for the last 30 minutes. So feel free to select the pose that is best for you. Then allow your eyes to close. Take a deep cleansing breath in through your nose. Exhale it out through your nose. Again, in through your nose. Out through your nose. Keeping your parasympathetic nervous system calm. Lowering your blood pressure and your heart rate. And your breathing, and take rest. Begin to deepen your breath. If you wish to remain in Shavasana, do so. A long Shavasana is always welcome. Bring your attention back into your space. Bring movement to your fingers and to your toes, to your wrists, and to your ankles. Bend your knees. Scooch away from the wall enough so that you can bring your knees into your chest and give yourself a squeeze. And rock from left to right. And then coming over to whatever side makes the most sense. All the way over. And then, if you can stay there in fetal pose for a moment, do so. Otherwise, just come up into the seat. And then use your hands to push yourself up into a seated position. Thank you for sharing this wall yin practice with me this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope your body got the relief, the stress relief, and the tension reduced. Take the kindness and compassion that you practice on your mat with you wherever you go, and share it with your family, your friends, and others you may meet. Namaste.
Namaste.
My name is Clint, and this has been Yin Yoga.